The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and/or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
The life of comic fandom can be lonely, but just around the corner can be found a place that lets you know you're not the only nerdy true believer who's around. The comic book store, 'cause that's where the books live, but it's also much more. It's the heart of the art form that we all adore. Your friendly neighborhood comic book store. Out among the stacks of new releases, browsing with your future new best friends, you're gonna find a book you'll love to pieces. The girl behind the counter recommends dollar books and shelves of graphic novels. Titles old and new, you'll find them all, with action figures, board games, toys, and models to add to your new Comic Wednesday haul. The comic book store, 'cause that's where the books live, but it's also much more. It's the heart of the art form that we all adore. Your friendly neighborhood comic book store.
Yes, now we are back in the comic book store. This is Comic Stripped, and I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich.
Pronounced Radulich.
Hooah! Got you all in check. And joining me is the one and only. He walks with Jesus and on water. He's good to his mother. Some language, father of the year, comic book historian extraordinaire, and the voice of reason. Also, the king of puns, Evan Bevins. How do you do, sir?
I'm going to have trouble living up to that intro.
I forgot one. Hardest man to schedule.
Now, that's not true. We just scheduled something. I mean, I may have to change it 4 times, but right now it's tentatively scheduled.
You know, between any number of people who want my time on that particular night and any number of things that could go wrong in your house and cause a flood, it's entirely possible we'll have to reschedule it. But, you know, right now you're scheduled.
It's all we can do.
It's all we can do. Evan Bevins, you and I are slowly but surely going through all of the independent comic movie adaptations that we can find. A couple of months ago, we did I Kill Giants, and now we're doing The Losers. The Losers, which I don't know if you know this or not, but The Losers is a comic book series written by Andy Diggle, who gives us The Big Wiggle, and illustrated by Jock, and published
Wait a
by...
minute. We're doing the Andy Diggle one? Then why did I read this?
Oh, my God. That's the
for those in the audio medium, it's the Showcase presents The Losers from the original incarnation. But we are, and I read the Vertigo, the 21st Century Vertigo take on The Losers.
That's right. Andy Diggle, who gives us The Big Wiggle. And illustrated by Jock and published by the Vertigo imprint of DC Comics. It ran for 32 issues from August 2003 to March 2006. The idea was loosely based on his on the prop that he just showed, because everyone's got to have a fucking gimmick now on my podcast. Thank you, Zach.
If you hadn't gotten so mad about the props last time, I probably still would have done it, but I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much.
You know, other than all of your godly nicknames that I give you, the other one is Scutch. You are Scutch, Evan Bevins.
Do I want to know what that means?
You're mildly antagonistic.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
It was very loosely based on the original The Losers for DC Comics, a group of World War II soldiers, although Diggle maintains he has never read a single issue of the original series. Yeah, that tracks. And that it was adapted into
Except there was a character named Pooch in the original series.
Of course there was.
But here's the thing: it was an actual dog.
Take 3. And then it was adapted into a film of the same name in 2010, starring Captain America, Chris Evans, and a bunch of other people. And Stringer from The Wire. The Wire.
A.K.A. Heimdall, A.K.A. Bloodsport. A.K.A. Stacker Pentecost.
He'll always be Stringer Bell to me. Good old Idris. All right. This is where you shine, Evan Bevins. This is where you get to impress everyone with your knowledge. Tell us about Andy Diggle and his big wiggle.
I'll tell you about Andy Diggle. He is a British comic book writer who has done a lot of Vertigo type stuff, Hellblazer, Swamp Thing, some Mystery in Space, some Adam Strange type stuff. But probably one of the things he's best known for is he did Green Arrow Year One, which inspired a lot of the material for the Arrow series on the CW.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
It also inspired the name of the character John Diggle.
Ah.
Who had a brother on the show named Andy.
Yes, self-insert much, Kathleen Kennedy?
No, he didn't write he didn't create Diggle. The people on the show did that as an homage to him.
Okay.
Yeah. Diggle didn't show up in the comics until after that.
Okay.
So, and then he has worked with Jock. I don't think it's Jock because he's actually Scottish.
You didn't like my French pronunciation, Jock?
I didn't dislike it. I'm just providing context.
Okay, he's probably not French. Got it.
I gotta have some way to get under your skin without just props all the time.
It's fair.
But yeah, he worked with Andy Diggle on 2000 AD, the British comic that features Judge Dredd and characters like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also drew Green Arrow Year One.
Okay. So what do you know about this besides what I've read off a Wikipedia page? What do you know about this Losers? Is this you and I talked, and I was only half kidding when we are literally going through every single film adaptation I can find that has a comic book. Without any other real context, this wasn't so much I've heard about the Losers. It's really good. I want to watch it and read it. It was on a list. So, do you have anything more to add than it's on a list?
Not a lot. I did the showcase edition that I won't show again for our listeners only. I found that at an antique shop in one of the Carolinas on a trip. We just stopped and there was just this one comic book collection sitting there on a shelf with knickknacks and whatnot. So naturally I bought it.
An antique shop? You went antiquing, Evan Bevins? You don't do like Jesse and just wander around your neighborhood fondling other people's junk?
No, I had a bad experience at a yard sale recently.
Okay. You have to have heard me make that joke with him before. You have to have.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
No, I'm a little wary of yard sales because we went to one as they were finishing up, and the lady told my daughter, here, take whatever you want. It's free. And we left with 3 boxes of clothes and stuffed animals as I was going, no, we don't need that.
How much of that stuff fit her?
What's that?
How much of the clothing fit her? Because
some.
This story is funnier if you took home a box of clothing that didn't fit your kid.
Her favorite thing it turned out to be too small.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Well,
but I think I had read this when the movie came out a while back. But I didn't remember much of it. So, but yeah, that's all I know is that it was a World War II set comic. DC had a lot of those. They were actually introduced in a story featuring the haunted tank.
The haunted tank?
You don't know the haunted tank?
No, tell me about the haunted tank.
Well, it's a soldier who I'm forgetting the guy's name, and this is live. You don't edit like Jesse, but he's the descendant of a Confederate general whose ghost haunts the tank he operates in World War II.
That's fantastic. All right, so here's what we did. We read book 1. That's what we're going to compare to the movie. Book 1, which collects issues 1 through 12. It's about 304 pages. And it, as far as the original trades, it collects Ante Up 1 through 6, and then Double Down 7 through 12. And the plot, as the Wikipedia tells me, is the losers reimagining was set against events surrounding and including the War on Terror. Originally a special forces team integrated with the Central Intelligence Agency. In the 90s, the losers were betrayed by their handler, Max, and left for dead following the conclusion of their operation. Eager for revenge and the opportunity to remove their names from a secret CIA death list, the losers regroup and conduct covert operations against the CIA and its interests, uncovering startling operations spearheaded by the enigmatic Max, whose influence within the CIA and the U.S. government is unparalleled. So where the issue 12 ends is the issue, I think, 6 ends with them going after the oil rig. And I would say the movie follows closely Ante Up. You know, it shows them being betrayed. I think it's in Colombia instead of Bolivia, which is what happens in the movie. It shows them meeting Aisha, who is Zoe Saldaña's character. Jesus, Zoe Saldaña's character in the movie. It shows them deciding they're going to get revenge on the CIA. It shows Roque betraying them and them going after Roque. And then the movie ends with them getting even with the guy that sold them out. The comic, they steal a hard drive that's got it's very similar to the movie. That's got all the secrets of the CIA, which they basically like take us off the kill list and leave us alone, or we're gonna put this very what is it? Jonathan Snow from Snowden. Jesus.
Edward, yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna need you to help me. Brain not working. Edward Snowden, putting up all the secrets on the web and all of that. Very similar to that sort of thing. Like, we're gonna publish all the CIA's dirty secrets if unless you take us off the kill list. That's like the first 6 issues. Then the next one, they take a break from the action and you kind of follow their individual stories, and none of this is in the movie. And then they kind of get back together again, and I'll be honest with you, that last couple of issues just sort of lost me. There
was a volcano.
Huh? Yeah.
There was a volcano.
What else happened?
Well, the drive that they got in the comics anyway didn't have a whole lot of like stuff that they could directly prove. Like it showed all this stuff, but it didn't have any real smoking gun. But it led them to this island where there was a volcano, and it had buried a safe. And so in the second storyline, they get the safe, and it has something else that doesn't shut Max down, but leads them on. It's a series of MacGuffins.
But leads them to the next trade paperback. Got it.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So let me go ahead and say this is a comic I think I would have read if I had been reading floppies back in whatever year this was, 2003. This was a comic I think I would have enjoyed in its initial run. I like the idea. I think when we get to the film, like the film was very much compared to like the A-Team. It's a special forces unit on the run from the government trying to help.
It's too bad they actually say they're an A-Team.
Yeah.
Like not a reference to the show, but an alpha team or whatever. But
so
I love me some A-Team.
So I like the idea. So the comic book I think is pretty good. Something that Jesse and I talked about, and with television, Alexis and I talked about a little ways back, is that we have this podcast where we talk about things and we review them, and I think it's fun to have a conversation, but not everything always lends itself to like critical review. More on that when you hear our review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Listen to it, you'll know why.
Why do you hate Indiana Jones?
No, I just hate all of you. So
that's fair.
So anyway, you pick on Robert and I lash out. Anyway, so I don't have and I actually want you to speak to this, Evan, because I think this is a conversation starter for this comic. Actually works better than talking about the comic itself. A lot of comic books, and I kind of said this last night about Indiana Jones. There are some things that I think they're just put out into the world, and they don't necessarily have a greater theme or subtext to them. They are just entertainment. Like it is flat, sort of shallow entertainment, and it is entertaining, but there isn't there's not a lot of stuff to dig into. And so as I was reading this first 12 issues of The Losers, and you're following this action team around and they're doing soldier stuff, and it's all very pulpy and all very entertaining, but I didn't necessarily see a lot of subtext and theme to deconstruct and dissect, which I don't think is a bad thing. I just think I think it's an example of something I talked about last night, which is some creators don't feel the need to smarten up their stuff. They're like, they know their audience, they know they like pulpy, they know they like shallow, that no one's looking to think deeply about these things, and that's what they put out there. And I think The Losers is one of a zillion other projects out there that definitely fits that bill. What do you think?
I see what you're saying. I thought there were at least maybe a couple efforts to, as you put it, smarten up the reader. But like at the end of the first arc, they had the quote from the guy talking about how the CIA funds, a guy from the DEA, I think it was, saying the CIA had funded a bunch of,
I got to cut in here. Have you ever watched Snowfall?
No.
Are you aware of the long-running series of San Diego Times news articles that documented the supposed, and I have to say supposed because somebody who worked for the government says this never happened, so still controversial, but allegedly the CIA was allowing crack cocaine to enter into the country, or cocaine that was then turned into crack. They were allowing cocaine to enter freely into Los Angeles as a way of funding the war in Nicaragua, I believe it was.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard about that. I haven't read those specific articles, but there were a lot of references to that in that one issue of the comic where it shows, like, I think that was in the the interlude one where they all went their separate ways and fleshed them out a little bit. So yeah, I don't think this one was just flat with no depth at all. But yeah, the focus was definitely on the action, and that was more sort of trying to flesh out the world a little bit. But I mean, the focus here is definitely on the action, the entertainment aspect. I mean, one complaint I had is at first I had trouble kind of telling some of the characters apart.
Oh yeah, no, I could not tell.
Roke and Clay,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Roke and Clay. A lot of times, I had to double check which one was which in a panel, and I couldn't remember Pooch's name. Thankfully, Cougar was wearing a cowboy hat, so I always followed him. But I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. Like we didn't have a single issue explaining all their childhoods or whatever. A lot of times you like I said, Roke and Clay were a little hard to tell apart, but a lot of times their dialogue and their actions told you more about them rather than a straight, here is the origin of Cougar, here is why he wears his cowboy hat.
So the Chris Evans character was about the only one that stood out for me.
Yeah.
And all I could hear is, because like I said, I watched the movie first, so all I heard was Chris Evans every time he talked, and some of his dialogue is literally verbatim from the comic to the movie. Every time I saw Clay, I heard Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So he stood out, and Roke stood out because he looked like, who is the Marvel character villain that has like the M on his face, or am I thinking of Bishop?
But you are thinking of Bishop.
Okay.
He was a villain for a year or two.
Fair enough. But every time
I shot Professor X in the head.
But every time I saw Rogue, that's all I thought about was oh, does that say mutant? What is that scar on his face?
I got confused because it had been years since I read it or watched the movie, and I initially thought that Jeffrey Dean Morgan, because I read the comics first this time around. I thought Jeffrey Dean Morgan was Rogue because I thought of him as a bad guy and Idris Elba as a good guy. And I haven't even watched The Walking Dead, but I was like, well, of course Negan betrays them.
See, you have to watch The Wire, and then it makes sense that Idris Elba is the bad guy.
The Wire, is that a movie or?
So anyway, Putting people in the basement when they misbehave now. He said out loud on a podcast that the NSA listens to. Anyway, no, and I don't mean to make it sound like it's necessarily dumb. I think you can write things. I think you can write things that are well written. I think you can write things that are very entertaining. And I think your point is, well, it's speaking to maybe some hostility or anxiety about the shady shit our government does. There's definitely an editorial point of view in The Losers about, hey, when the government does bad government things, we should have people stand up and fight it. And that's what The Losers represents. That's about as deep as it goes, though. Which
I'm not saying it's like, revolutionary commentary. It's just, It may be as simple as going, hey, let's ground this in a little bit of pseudo reality, so it gives it a little extra weight. But the focus is definitely on the action, and a lot of those scenes, like you were saying, go straight from the comic to the movie. This wasn't a case of someone going, hey, this is kind of a cool idea, let's make it better. It was, hey, this would really work as a movie. Let's not screw it up.
Yeah, I think, and if you want, we can transition into the movie if you don't have anything more to say about the comic.
Oh, well, I did have one more thing to say.
Go ahead.
I really liked the art, Jock's art. Now, it's the kind that wouldn't necessarily work for me in everything.
Why only the one name? Who is this guy? Who is Jock?
Mark Simpson.
Is that who that really is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And what is Mark Simpson famous for?
Oh, he's the one. He worked with Andy Diggle on the 2000 AD stuff.
Okay.
Did Green Arrow year 1. Hang on, I did pull up his resume here. Almost 5 minutes before we started recording, because I told you I would.
Yes, this is no preparation.
Working hard. He's done a lot of covers, like for Batman, Nightwing, and Catwoman.
Okay.
And then he's done interior art for like Swamp Thing and Hellblazer. So Vertigo, it's very stylized art that it really works for this series, because there is a lot of over the top ridiculous action, like the helicopter heist. But I was also impressed, like when there's violence, it's pretty gruesome. It's almost a cartoony but gritty style of art. But the one guy, Wade, gets shot and like a chunk of his ear flies off.
Right.
I hate, and I've said this before, I hate the movies that get their PG-13 rating because their high body count is completely bloodless and it's a bunch of nameless, grunts dying. I think if it's going to be violent, it ought to be ugly. Because violence is ugly.
Have you seen The Flash yet?
I have not.
You're aware of the opening scene with the babies?
I heard a little something about it. Yeah.
So my son and I were debating how else that scene could have been done. He was like, what if they let the babies die? And I was like, he's 9. He's like, what if we just let the babies fall to the ground? And I'm like, okay, where are you going with this, Jonas? And he's like, well, what would get the Flash a rated R? How would you make the Flash rated R? Like if you see the babies splat on the ground, does that give you a rated R? And I'm like, no, that would be NC-17 and probably banned in most countries. You can't show babies splattering on the ground, you psycho.
Faithful.
He's stretching his film muscles.
No, I understand, and I haven't seen it yet. I grumble about how Warner's basically killing these movies by telling people they don't matter, and then I don't go see them because I'm like, I'll see it eventually. It doesn't matter.
If you're not part of the solution, Evan Bevins, you're part of the problem.
I'm a hypocrite.
Go take your kids to go see Blue Beetle. Are your kids movie trained? Can they sit through a 2-hour feature?
Oh, they can. They just usually don't like to go see anything I suggest.
Oh, okay. You should make them because you're their dad. Shut the fuck up and get in the car. Get in the car. That's how I parent.
Well, that's one approach.
Anywho, so one of the things about the comic as we transition into the movie was there are some that we talk about where it's just like it just seems like the movie was inspired by, and I talk about
Cowboys and Aliens.
Yeah, and I talk about how some comics seem almost like a storyboard for a movie. Like this is almost word for word, scene for scene. what happens in the movie. And the comic, it's not necessarily verbatim in all cases, or page for page, plot for plot, but the bones are all there. The bones are all there from the comic to the movie, which was nice for a change. I actually feel like, oh, good. Like there's something to compare and contrast here in how the comic was done in the movie, because it gets a little hard to do that when they're basically two different things.
Right. And we didn't ever get, they had to go ahead and tell us who Aisha was in the movie, which we didn't get 12 issues into the series. I'm pretty sure she was not the same person Zoe Saldaña was revealed to be. But they had to do something there.
Yes, they had to thicken up the movie just a bit. So, anything else on the comic before we start getting into the movie?
No, I generally like it. I appreciated that, even though it was violent. Clay made a point several times about, hey, we're not just going around killing random people. We'll use lethal force if we have to, especially with folks working with Goliath. But and they did some of that in the movie too. It wasn't just another thing that bugs me in movies is bystanders as collateral damage.
Yeah.
Like in Face Off, where whichever one, Travolta is Cage or Cage is Travolta, escapes from a prison with guards just doing their job and just killing people left and right. And I'm like, they don't know you're who you are. But anyway.
Yeah. I like
I appreciated that it wasn't just a celebration of violence.
Yeah. I like the comic. It would be one that I think if I had more time and I wasn't just doing things for content and I just wanted to do things for the joy of it, I might actually finish off the series. And that was the last question I was going to ask you. Is this worth it? If you're like us and you only read the first 12 issues, is it worth finishing off the last 24? I think it is.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes. I got a little tired of the MacGuffin chain. It's like, hey, we've got oh no, it leads us on another clue. It's good for keeping the series going, but the second or third time I was like, okay, come on. But in general, I like the tone. I like the art. It's pretty creative with the action. I know the last one we talked about, Cowboys and Aliens, wasn't bad, but it was like there wasn't really anything like super memorable. And there's a lot of memorable scenes and sequences in this, which is what you like with your action movies is something like, oh man, wasn't it cool when they did this?
Yeah. I was going to say, you're talking about like the graphic stuff in the comic book. There's a scene where somebody makes a snappy remark and someone gets literally their head blown off and you just see brains coming out of their head. And like, oh, okay, then. That's fun. So a couple of things
scary for me, violent consequences to sarcasm.
It's fair. In the week after the film's release, The Losers Book 1 topped the New York Times paperback graphic books list. So, this is not exactly an unknown thing. In 2004, the series won the Eagle Award for Favorite New Comic Book and was nominated for the Best New Series Eisner Award. In 2006, Jock was nominated for the Best Cover Artist Eisner Award for The Losers. So, we definitely picked one here that I think has some degree of weight to it. So let's talk about the movie now. The Losers is a 2010 American action film and an adaptation by Peter Berg and James Vanderbilt of the Vertigo Comic series of the same name. Directed by Sylvain White, the film features an ensemble cast that includes Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Zoe Saldaña, Idris Elba, and Chris Evans, or as we know them, the cast of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film received mixed reviews from critics and drew comparisons to The A-Team, a remake of which was released shortly after The Losers premiered, which I think is interesting. So Sylvain White, his films, he directed the 2018 Slender Man, The Mark of Angels, Misery. He wrote Walden, but didn't direct it. You might know him from Stomp the Yard, and the direct-to-video, I'll always know what you did last summer. Yeah, this guy, not a lot.
I'll always know what you did last summer on the first day of fall. It's a tradition. No, I never saw it.
He has a lot more television credits. Most recently, he did an episode of All American Homecoming. In 2022, he did an episode of Billions, Bel Air, The Terminal List, 2 episodes of The Terminal List, and 1 episode of Reasonable Doubt. He did 3 episodes of The Umbrella Academy, 2 episodes of Fargo. He's also worked on The Rookie, the 2018 iteration of Magnum PI, and and Hawaii Five-0, Covert Affairs, Person of Interest. So, he's writer, director for hire. I guess this is one of those things where I'm looking at the budget for this. The budget for this was $25 million. It barely made its budget. Like, this did not do well.
Huh.
But I think, it was distributed by Warner Brothers. And I think that this probably was one of those deals where, like, here's this comic book. Let's adapt a movie. We'll put some name stars in there. And again, 2010, like, I think by that point, all Chris Evans had done was he was the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four movies.
Yeah. Most of those people are a lot bigger now than they were then.
Right. So I think it was like we have some up and coming actors here. Because like even Idris Elba by 2010, like he was known for his television work. He was not really a movie star just yet.
Yeah.
And some might argue he's not a movie star now either. He's still, just slightly bigger than television.
I don't know, man. Idris Elba being on the cast makes it more interesting to me. But
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying the general consensus.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of those deals where, like, okay, well, we'll put some up and coming hot actors in here. This is a fun action movie. Like, if we can, it's one of those where if we can make it for cheap and it does well, we'll turn a tidy profit. It really didn't find an audience, obviously, which is a shame because it's actually
intended to have or left open for a sequel.
Oh, absolutely.
That never happened.
No, it did not make.
Now, if they went back and did it now,
no one's gonna watch. All right. So, I'm not gonna read the plot, but essentially, it's the same. It's very similar to the comic book. They're in Bolivia. They're sent in to blow up some guy's place, and they find there are children there, and they're like, kill them anyway. And they're like, no, we're not killing children. They save the children. They put them on a helicopter. The helicopter then gets blown up with the kids on it.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, that's a rough watch.
From when I originally watched it, not from last week. I still remember that.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd watched it. And again, rough watch. Like, yikes. But, the whole thing with killing the kids was they weren't really intending to kill the kids. It was they thought they were on the chopper, and whether the kids were there was immaterial. Zoe Saldaña finds them in hiding and says, hey, the guy that tried to kill you, he's still out there, and I want him dead. So I'll get you back into the United States. You kill this guy, and we'll get you off the CIA death list. So they join up with her, and because they're the two leads in a movie, Zoe Saldaña and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, for no other reason that I could tell, end up hooking up.
Oh, yeah, that was exactly. It was like, well, he's the alpha male. She's the only female in the cast.
Right. Let's make them fuck. So that's kind of how it comes across. A lot of it is very much like heisty action movie type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit in the comic book with the Chris Evans character that is almost entirely cribbed from the comic in the movie.
Oh, the telekinesis.
Yeah, where he's like he goes in there to steal the drive because it's the same plot. If they steal this drive, then they get information that they need to clear themselves, and that's what they're after. So again, it's like half a heist, half a straight up like action movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gets the drive. He gets cornered in the building. Security has him dead to rights. And Chris Evans does one of these deals. He's like, I have telekinesis, and I'll shoot you with my fingers if you don't let me go. And what they don't know, and what ends up happening, is that he's being covered by, what is it? Pacho? Cougar. Yeah, I was close. Cougar and his hat. He's got a sniper rifle, and he like takes everybody out except the one guy who's like, oh no, I'm really being shot with fingers. And Chris Evans gets away. Just like in the comic book, they have a last-ditch effort to bop the man, but they are betrayed by Roke, who is played by Idris Elba. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan gets revenge on him when he blows him up in a plane with a motorcycle. Zoe Saldaña,
another scene that was almost straight out of the comics, although Roke survived in the comics.
Yeah. Zoe Saldaña, her dad was the target from the opening scene of the movie. So she nearly kills Jeffrey Dean Morgan about it. But in the end, she ends up helping them get revenge, and they kill the bad guy. They win the day, and they go on to, how does it end? Did they go on to do more missions?
The bad guy got away.
Oh, that's right. The bad guy got, because it was set up for a sequel. Duh. The bad guy, they killed all the henchmen, but the bad guy got away.
Yeah.
He said, I'll get you next time, Gadget. Next time.
He has his watch stolen by thugs on a city bus.
If that's right. So I'll start and then we can get into this. I really like The Losers. Like, again, this isn't going to be like it's no Pool Hall Junkies or Suicide Kings or Reservoir Dogs. This is not going to sit on my shelf as like my top 5 favorite movie of all time. But this is a great cast. Like, this is a cast with a lot of chemistry.
Absolutely.
Everybody works really well together. So it's one of those where, like, the plot in and of itself is, as I said about the comic book, is kind of flat and shallow, but it's just enough bone to hang a very pretty movie on. And so there's some halfway stylized fun action sequences. The best thing about this movie is the performances. Chris Evans is hysterical in this. Like, that kind of character, that like snippy, snarky, jokey goofball of a character, can sometimes be really grating in these movies depending on how they're written. And I think Chris Evans pulls it off. Like, so it's funny that he's going to be Captain America, because Captain America not known for his sarcasm.
Oh yeah. I remember when he was cast as Captain America, because I was thinking of him as the Torch, and I'm like, this guy?
Yeah.
Really?
The guy from what is it? The movie where was it like Not Another Teen Movie or some shit where he, or whatever fucking date movie he was in where he like puts whipped cream on his dick? That guy? You know what I'm talking about.
I didn't see that one, but I know that's where he got his start.
Yeah, it's hard. It's funny now to think that Chris Evans becomes Captain America, where that's his fucking start. But I want to bring up his filmography for a second. But go ahead, and what were your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, the performances were great. I like the way they did. It was kind of like the comics in that there wasn't a whole lot of backstory, but they let what was happening, show you who they were. Like that opening scene where they're gambling for weapons, that establishes the camaraderie. Right. I don't think they ever had a scene in the comics or the movies where Jensen, Chris Evans' character, says, hey, I know Cougar's got my back no matter what. But then they do that telekinesis thing, and you're like, okay, these guys know each other. They trust each other. Right. It came off as more than just a fun gimmick.
All right. So Not Another Teen Movie was 2001, and that is what I'm thinking about with the whipped cream.
Okay.
By the way, he does Fantastic Four in 2005 and then Rise of the Silver Surfer in 2007. He does The Losers in 2010, and the same year he's in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It's not until the following year that he's in Captain America, the First Avenger. I think it's really interesting. Like,
Chris Evans, comic book movie all-star.
Yep. I guess my point with bringing that up is it's interesting to me that this goofy, this hot goofy guy who was not great in the Fantastic Four movies was their choice for Captain America, and now everyone thinks that's like spot on casting. Like no, we've hit a point where no one can picture anyone else being Captain America.
Yeah,
but Chris Evans.
It's almost like he's an actor, and he can convey different concepts or characters.
I think what was noticed about him is that people didn't think he was a good actor until he showed some range, for being fair. But yeah, like, this is a movie that is absolutely held up by its performances. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I think, as sort of the square-jawed stoic lead, the sex machine, he's all the things. He's good, but he is definitely propped up by Idris Elba and Chris Evans. The other two guys don't do a whole hell of a lot. The one guy that plays Pooch,
a little bit short.
Yeah, he when he's shot in the legs, that's like the best part of the movie for me with him. Yeah. He's like stand up. He's like, how? I've been shot in the legs, you assholes.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I have in my notes that this movie out comic booked the comic book.
Okay. What does that mean?
Because the MacGuffin here is a sonic dematerializer. That just like implodes an island, and I'm like, that is more comic book than anything I read in the comics.
Right.
And then Max, for the first 12 issues of the comic, is seen only in the shadows and very sparingly, whereas here it's Jason Patrick, who's like a store brand Joker.
Right.
He's just like doing evil things that, like, where they're walking on the beach and the wind blows and his assistant moves the umbrella off him, so he shoots her in the head. It's like that. So you're telling me he's evil and crazy. I'm like, how did this guy amass this much power?
Right. Bob Gunn, bang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting. So, can we talk about that for just a second? I'm getting a little tired of the quirky villain. Like, villain, not that every villain should be cut from the same cloth and be stock and the exact same thing, but can we at least bring back menacing? When did we lose the menacing villain? Everyone's either way too jokey to be menacing. Like, I made the joke about, parent to parent your kid, threaten them. I'm not really like that. But if you've ever had to discipline a child, it doesn't. You're sending kind of a mixed signal if you're trying to be stern and jokey at the same time. Your audience for said thing isn't quite getting what it is you're trying to convey, and you're just kind of queering the soup. Everyone loves Loki, or at least they did after this show. Who knows? But
I still did.
Loki after I think the first Avengers movie, where on the one hand, he kind of has menacing going, but he's also kind of jokey, and then they utterly fucking denude him, where it's like, oh, okay. And as funny as the Hulk slamming him on the ground was, and I laugh every time I see it, it also is just like, oh, you kind of took the stuffing right out of him. Granted, it's the end of the movie, but I'll never think of Loki as menacing again. And hey, lucky for us, he never is. What is it in Ragnarok? You're like, oh, please don't. What is it? Don't shoot or whatever.
Get help.
Get help. Like, we're not doing get help.
Yeah.
Loki, absolutely, just no more balls. This villain, he does a thing where he kind of nods to his head goon. His head goon, who's a better villain in this movie than the actual villain.
Yes.
Throws a guy off a roof. And there's a 5-minute conversation. And this is what I mean by some movies, they just need to kill your babies. Because look, there's no more sarcastic guy than me. There's no more guy willing to lean into a gag for his own amusement. But I have a Robert Winfrey going, no, stupid. Get that out of here. There's no need for it. And I feel like this was one of those scenes. So they're having this conversation on the rooftop. And he's just like, I nodded at you. I nodded at you to threaten him. I didn't nod at you to throw him off the building. And he was like, well, I don't know what your nod means. I assumed your nod means throw him off the building. I'm just doing as you tell me, boss. He's like, it's really excessive. And this goes on for a good long while.
Yeah.
Before they get back to the movie. It has nothing to do with anything. It has no payoff later. He doesn't throw him off a building at some point. There's nothing. The only other thing I can relate it to is that this henchman is just so put upon by his boss. His boss is such a lunatic that he's just like, everything just bothers me. I hate this gig. As far as henchman gigs go, this one really bugs me. Because there's another bit where he's like, that special ops team I told you to put together? Yeah, kill them all. What, you don't want to kill them? Well, one of them's my brother-in-law, but it's fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But they sound like an old married couple. And it bugged the shit out of me because, again, in neither case was this necessary or did anything for the movie.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, now I don't know. I haven't heard anybody argue about this in the chat lately, but I mean, I like Heath Ledger's Joker in Dark Knight.
Sure.
But this guy, it was just crazy for the sake of crazy. There wasn't anything intimidating about him. They were just telling you, oh, this guy's dangerous. Trust me, he's dangerous. We're not sure how he can dress himself, but he's dangerous.
All right, now you got me wondering. Okay, 2008. I don't know if by 2010 we were still, the Joker had that much influence on scripts. I feel like it would have to take a few more years. You could look at Jason Momoa and go, oh, he's doing Heath Ledger's Joker. Heath Ledger's Joker has had this phenomenal impact on the culture. It has changed the way we do things. That makes more sense to me. 2010, you think? You think?
No, I don't know if it was an homage to that. I'm just saying, as far as the wild card villain who does weird things and is actually threatening, Heath Ledger did it.
Right.
The thing with the pencil, the heist at the beginning. I mean, he backed it up. He showed he was dangerous, not just random.
Sure.
And this guy, until he finally shoots somebody, okay, he shot his assistant, but come on, that wasn't impressive. You know, when he kills the scientist toward the end, like that was him actually doing something.
I said this about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny last night, and I've said this about a lot of movies and television shows and comic books that we talk about. There are things in these different mediums that are there because the people that made the thing saw it somewhere else, liked it, thought it was cool, or knew other people thought it was cool, and put it in their thing, but they don't know why it worked in the thing they stole it from. So they're just doing a bad cover song.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of feels like the thing that you're talking about, like the wacky comic book villain, you know, that like they saw it work somewhere else. They don't know why it works. They just know they just know it does. So then they do a pale imitation of it, and then they're wondering why this doesn't connect with people. You know, there's more to doing a thing than just copying it. You know, without the proper context, without the roots, things don't work. And it bugs me because I see a lot of this now. There's a lot of imitation in Hollywood, not a lot of knowing why things work and using them appropriately. And I feel like that is a talent that is lost in a lot of different forms of entertainment. This just being one of the many examples. He's fine, I guess, as a villain. Just the bit with the rooftop really bugged me. The shooting the assistant bugged me too. I was like, why are we doing this? And then it's like at the end, he's so like hyperverbal.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, The only thing that was funny about the ending for me was they do the thing where it's like, if you shoot me, I blow us all up, and he shoots him anyway. He's like, damn it, I thought that would work.
Like, that was good.
That was very
but yeah, he they're trying to force. It feels like they're trying to force him. Like, no, he's really evil and menacing, whereas the other characters kind of grow naturally. Like the other thing I liked is that Roke's betrayal doesn't come out of nowhere, and it doesn't feel like it's just we got you. There's a traitor. Like from the beginning, he's, even though they're friends, he's clashing with Clay over his decisions and stuff. So that when he does it, you're like, oh yeah, okay.
It's an extremely effective turn. It's an extremely effective, because I don't know if you've ever been a part of a relationship where, like, someone makes a demand of you, you give in, and then another demand of you is made, and you give in, and another demand of you is made, and like after a while, it's like I was trusting you. Now I'm losing trust in you. Now I'm just getting frustrated. I don't know what we're doing here anymore, and you won't stop asking me to do things, and now I don't want to do. And now, not only do I not want to do it just to begin with, but I just don't want to listen to you anymore. And so, like, this wasn't about money. This wasn't about I was the author of all your pain. This was literally, I have had enough of you, and I want out of this. I want out of this marriage, and that's why he betrays him. And it's great. It's the best part of it is literally without leaning on something that's funny or like wildly visually entertaining. It is the best part of the movie when Idris Elba turns on Jeffrey Dean Morgan, because haven't we all been there? When you look at the person across from you going, everything you do stinks. Everything you have asked me to do hurts, and I'm tired of it, and I want to go home. Like, yeah, I'm with you, Idris Elba. I know how you feel.
It definitely makes more sense than the romance.
Yeah,
and that was the other thing that bugged me.
Well, hang on, there was more natural sexual chemistry between Idris Elba and Jeffrey Dean Morgan than there was between Zoe Saldaña and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who looks like she's fucking her dad. By the way, can I just say that Zoe Saldaña and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, ew, gross.
Yeah. The other thing that bugged me is so then, you know, it's revealed, spoiler alert, that she, well, no, you already said that she's the drug lord's daughter or whatever. Yeah. And she's like, okay, I'm going to kill you. Well, first we'll kill Max, but then I'm going to kill you. And then the next scene, she's hanging out with them and helping Pooch get in to see his kid be born, and then going to Jensen's niece's soccer game. It's like, I get it. You wanted a sequel, but she's just like, okay, this isn't over. One day I'm going to kill you. Yeah, let's hang out some more.
Yeah.
Grab some pizza. I'm not killing you today.
What is this, the Dread Pirate Roberts? All right, I'll kill you in the morning. What are we doing here? So, anything else?
That just seemed kind of out of place.
Yeah, like I said, it's a nice pulpy action movie. It's utter. I think this clocks in at like exactly 90 minutes. Hang on. Let me 97 minutes. So it's got a 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, It says the Losers is loud, fast, and unrelentingly violent, but it's also funny and well acted, which will make all the difference for some action fans. Metacritic has a 44 out of 100. An audience surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film a B, which means it's fair to middling. People didn't love it, they didn't hate it. The film played in less than 3,000 theaters and earned almost $10 million in its opening weekend and came in at number 4 at the box office. It went on to earn $23.5 million in the U.S. and more than $5 million internationally for worldwide over $29 million. Added to this, it made over $8.2 million in DVD sales in the USA alone, giving the minimum earning of $37.6 million. And up until like last week, it was on Max. Which is funny because I started watching it on Max and I went back to finish it and it was gone. I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, what the fuck, man?
Must have found a tax break.
Yeah, so now I had to actually go and rent it and finish it on Amazon Prime. Sons of bitches. I'll give you the last word here on the movie, the book, this podcast, life, the universe, and everything.
Oh wow, that's a lot of pressure. Yeah, no, I thought that they both were fun. They had their strengths, they had their weaknesses. The comic, bouncing back, they did have a couple sequences where they seemed to take delight in killing the bad guys, which I don't know, I can't really celebrate that. Mm-hmm. But Aisha was a lot scarier in the comic, and I want to read it for no other reason than to find out who the heck she is in the comic. Okay. There was a sequence where Clay's like, "Hey, no killing," and then she just shoots a guy, and she's like, "Yeah, whatever you say." But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it more. I enjoyed it more than I remembered, and I am curious to see what happens next. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm disorganized here, but you are more of a film historian than me. Mm-hmm. Where did they have climactic fights before shipping container yards?
Before Deadpool, you mean?
No, I mean Lethal Weapon 2. Mm-hmm. The A-Team, the denouement was in a thing full of shipping containers.
I think the question is, what wide open space can we have our giant fuck all fight come from? Because you think about it, I always go back to Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is like a perfect trilogy, and it is probably my go-to for how film should be done. But if you think about like the middle chapter of Lord of the Rings, is very
shipping containers.
Well, give me a moment. It's this very claustrophobic castle siege, right? That's how the Two Towers ends. It's all the armies in the world running straight down on this one castle, and they are backed into a cliff. And it's like, well, this is it. If we don't defend this castle, we all die. That's the conclusion of the Two Towers. It's interesting because of that claustrophobic feeling, because of that enclosed area. Like the entire last act, the entire last hour of the Two Towers is in Helm's Deep. They go nowhere. Nothing else happens. As opposed to the Return of the King, where the two final climactic battle scenes are a wide open fuck all space. You have the battle of Pelennor Fields, which is flat desert land and a castle siege, and then you have the assault on Mordor, or the giant distraction, which, just as an aside, all-powerful, all-knowing evil eye looking across the universe. Minor skirmish outside his front door. And he's like, "What? Hey, the fuck out of here." Just like waving a newspaper at him, like, "Get off my lawn." Meanwhile, two hobbits are like fighting his asshole, throwing a ring and a whatever. Go on. You were going to say something?
So you're saying the defeat of Sauron in the Lego Batman movie was more plausible?
Yes. I'm also saying that...
Love that movie.
I'm also saying that middle chapters take place in a very closed, claustrophobic, very isolated area, and your final sequence always takes place in this giant area. So where are giant areas? Deserts, the open sea, shipping yards, etc.
Okay. Gotcha. I feel better. I feel like I learned something.
Yes. When you shoot your movie, come see me, and I will show you how to do movie. Okay.
All right. Good to know. I'll break out that X-Men script I wrote in 7th grade.
Okay, you do that, and I'll break out my drawings of Transformer combiners, and we'll make
nice.
Yeah. Hey, gee,
nice.
hear what I talked about that?
I guess I didn't have a summary. I just vomited up the notes that I hadn't talked about yet. But I like the comic. I like the movie. Maybe a little violent for my taste, but generally good stuff.
All right. So that wraps up our review and comparison and contrast of the comic book, the first 12 issues, and the movie for The Losers. And we're going to bring back Evan in September. We talked about this at the top of the show. He's going to come back on September 11th after I have family dinner. So my schedule says. He's going to come back, and we're going to talk Two Guns, the book and the movie, which hopefully is still on Max, or it'll end up being on Amazon Prime. Who knows? In the meantime, today is July 4th. This is our last podcast of today. Last night, I screamed and yelled. I had quite the epic meltdown last night on talking about Indiana Jones. Let's just say Chris Bailey annoyed me on Sunday, and I exploded about it on Monday. So
very unusual. Usually, he's such an easygoing guy. Doesn't pick fights with anybody.
I love Chris Bailey. He's one of my great friends, and I treasure him, and I treasure that friendship. But it's okay to disagree, pal. It really is. It's okay. We can not have the same opinion. You're not dumb because you disagreed with me. You're a pretty girl. It's fine. So anyway,
you're saying he's dumb for a whole host of other reasons.
I'm not saying that at all, Evan Bevins. It's not nice at all.
Alpha Flight. Okay, sorry.
Oh my God. Eternal. So anyway, so yesterday, as I said, we myself, Alexis Hana, and Robert Winfrey complained about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. There's an unspoken issues for Conan Rune Saga that Jesse threw up. I made a page for Batwoman Elegy. Tomorrow, back when we used to have fun on the Radulich Broadcasting Network before I was social, we used to do fun commentaries. We would just get together. Evan. There was no schedule. We would just get together as friends, and we would say, let's watch a video game playthrough from the year of our Lord 1991 and just comment on it. And then for the next decade, scream, why should it goes well at each other. So that's what we did. We did a commentary for the 1991 Captain America and the Avengers arcade game.
Oh, love that game.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. So I'm going through all my old stuff and republishing it here on W2M, and that's going to go up Wednesday. Thursday is our alternative commentary for Bellator 237, Fedor versus Fat Rampage. He was fat, Evan Bevins. Did you know that? He was fat.
Was that a BA from the A-Team?
Yes, before he was fat.
Oh, okay.
Did I mention Rampage was fat in that fight? He was so fat. He looked pregnant. He looked like he was going to give birth in the cage. Just wanted to let you know that. Anyway, and then I told the story last night. I'm not going to retell it again. But what was called on our original feed, Positively Morrison, got renamed because that's inappropriate. Tommy Morrison Highlights Alternative Commentary. That goes up Friday. And then we start into Mission Impossible week. Our Long Road to Ruin from the days of yore. We did look at the first two Mission Impossible movies. That goes up on the 8th. And then the next two Mission Impossible movies, 3 and 4, go up on the 9th. And then Jesse and I start a new trilogy of comic books, starting with the Silver Surfer Black, which we talked about a little ways back. That goes up on the 10th. And then, I don't know if you know this or not, Evan Bevins, good to his mother, but in February, I do black shit. In June, I do gay shit. And in July, you know what I do? Shark shit.
Patriotic stuff?
No. Well, yes, but no. Shark shit. Because it's Shark Week. It's Shark Week, Evan Bevins.
Oh, yeah.
And so Jason, Dorian, and I, we're going to talk Shark Exorcist, Sharks of the Corn, and Ghost Shark on triple feature. How do you feel about that?
I feel kind of disappointed that you didn't include Noah's Shark.
Next year when we do more shark shit. Okay, I'll start planning that now.
Okay.
Speaking of shark shit, on Damn You Hollywood Tuesday, we're going to do Flamin' Hot and Extraction 2. Gavin, making his bi-quarterly appearance, will be on a special noon edition of TV Party. We're going to talk Ted Lasso Season 3. And then on Thursday, we're going to re-air our Damn You Hollywood for Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. And then Sean, back in the fold, doing his noon show, Long Road to Ruin, Men in Black. And we're doing Men in Black because I can't do a comic strip because I can't find the comics. And we talked about that the last time you and I got together. So we're just going to look at all 3 movies. How's that? How do you feel about that, Evan? Men in Black.
Weren't there 4?
There was, but we've already reviewed that one.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Unless there was a 4th one with Will Smith, in which case I don't care. I'm not talking about it.
No.
Yeah, there's 3 Will Smith movies and 1 with Chris Hemsworth.
That is correct.
Yeah. We did that one when it came out on Damn You Hollywood. Evan Bevins, I hear you write a comic book and paint houses.
Say what now?
I said I hear you write a comic book and then you paint houses.
Well, I have written a webcomic support group.
Hang on. Paint house is a euphemism for doing assassinations.
No, actually, I don't do the euphemism or the literal painting of houses.
Okay.
Yeah, I did write a webcomic called Support Group, about a support group for people with lame superpowers in case your origin doesn't work out the way they show it. One day I'm going to get back to that.
Oh, you don't do that?
I've also got a blog, *51.blogspot.com.
Mm-hmm.
I just, in honor of the birth of our nation, posted a review of Independence Day Dark Fathom, which was a trade paperback I didn't know existed until I found it in a Dollar Tree, buying movies like the Jurassic Games and Chinese-speaking vampires. So, yeah.
You should do your own movie podcast.
Well, yeah, I combined my my love of buying things I don't need at Dollar Tree with my love of comics. Apparently, one of the ships that they shot down in Independence Day went into the ocean and got up to shenanigans, and they needed William Fichtner to save us all.
Sounds perfect. All right. So that's that. That is our plugs. That's our review. Always fun hanging out with Evans. Everyone have a happy 4th of July. And if you're not really into America or Americans, then just have a nice day. Be well, be safe, and behave.